Hi everyone, thanks for having me today. I'm very excited about this talk. Actually, it's my first time here in Georgia, in Tbilisi, and I'm very happy to see you all here, yeah? So today I will gonna talk about, one of the most exciting topics I think around AI, about biases, and I will touch also things related to gender and racial biases in AI. And for sure, it's a huge topic. It is like a very interdisciplinary topic. And I have been dedicated, working for 5 years for this, but I will try to wrap it up in 30 minutes, and hopefully it will be insightful for all of you, yeah? Great, so just a very short intro about myself. As it was mentioned, I am doing my PhD. I'm finalizing my PhD in computer science at TU Berlin, and previously I did my master's degree in computer science at the University of Bonn, and I did my applied math at Moscow State University. I'm originally from Baku, Azerbaijan, and I'm currently doing my research fellowship in Zalando, and also working there as a applied scientist, AI applied scientist. AI, it's a buzzword. We have been talking around it decades already. Most of the time, people are thinking about AI as a magical tool actually to solve all the problems in the world. But at the end of the day, they are actually very good case studies where we can see that AI is changing different domains like transportation, or most importantly, the medical domain, one of the most exciting, for me at least, domains where AI is a game changer, where we see that the AI technologies are actually doing the predictions for the specific disease better than human doctors, and this medical robots and interesting use cases. Also human resources. I will come back to this point because it's one of the most critical aspects where we have to consider bias problem in AI. Public safety, finance, it's everywhere, yeah? And the technology around AI, like computer vision, NLP technologies, they are actually here. It's not a future. It is actually changing the way we work, the way we operate, the way we sometimes entertain. So it is a game changer, yeah? But as it was already mentioned by the previous speaker, AI is also a game changer, not always in the good way, yeah? We probably heard about this interesting case in Amazon in 2018 where there was a system that was trying actually to somehow allocate good candidates towards different tech positions and leading positions, and somehow this technology started to discriminate women, yeah? And they had started this, deep investigations, why this happened, why it's the case actually that women are discriminated from these tech positions, and it was obvious answer. I will come to that point, but the obvious answer was because the technology, the data that was actually collected to train those systems were not inclusive enough to consider women as well, because internally the company culture was actually towards favoring male candidates over female candidates, and those data points were actually transferred into the technology that they have built, which obviously lead to biased results, yeah? And I totally like this sentence that AI can amplify discrimination and biases such as gender and racial discrimination, because those are present in the data the technology is trained on, reflecting people's behavior. So if we talk about the bias in technology, we have to talk about bias in society and human biases, because AI is biased because we humans are biased. It's not always a bad thing. Biases are sometimes favored in specific domains, like, as I mentioned, the medical domain, where there should be a gender-specific approach to specific medical diagnosis, let's say. But in very special cases, like human resources management or law enforcement or public safety domains, it should be actually very well investigated, because one a very basic decision, human decision or human prejudice can actually directly impact the outcome of the technology, and like if we can call it machine learning models or whatever technology you want to call it, yeah? I also very like this structure because it's not only about the technology, it is about the structures and infrastructures around the AI and how the technology has been deployed and how it had been impacted by human decisions, yeah? So bias can creep in every layer of data processing pipeline. And by data, I mean the main asset that is actually used for training the machine learning models. Starting from data source, data collection, processes analyzing, and actual evaluation, biases can creep into this data processing pipeline. And this very interesting case, I want to bring your attention into this example from very popular ImageNet. I think we all know ImageNet. It is like open source platform where you can extract data to training your machine learning models, yeah? And for computer vision applications, we can see here different kind of images which are labeled in specific ways. And as you can see, for black people, even if they are playing soccer game, they are labeled as basketball. And for Asian people, even if they are playing something else, it's like ping pong ball or ping pong player. And for white people, it's most of the time soccer or something else, yeah? We already can see how the prejudices, racial, gender prejudices, are already in the data that is, widely used every day to train those models, yeah? So we have to now think about how we are labeling the data that we are using for those machine learning models, yeah? That is a fundamental question because it has a direct impact on the performance. It leads to disproportional performance of the benchmark, and also on specific cases like, you remember probably this when Tesla car actually hit it first the black person and it hit it something else, yeah? So this research is actually telling that Tesla cars are likely to hit black people more than white people, yes? And obviously we can see that it is actually impacted by how we label data, how we create data, and how inclusive is the data. In my PhD research, I was for sure mostly concentrating on data annotation pipeline. Why it is important, I already told you, but from technical perspective, and if you see this very interesting research from CHI conference, even the moment you are stating the problem, whatever problem you are solving, I don't know if it's like a facial recognition system which is solving the specific problem in specific domain, or it is something else. Starting from the problem statement, ending with the model deployment, like every state is actually directly impacting the next one, like data collection or the way you are training your model. So therefore, data collection and labeling is one of the most crucial ones because it is directly affecting the accuracy of your model, yeah? So in my PhD project, I will not go into more technical details for sure, but I will try to emphasize three main directions that I have approached with respect to biases in AI and specifically in data labeling practices for computer vision applications and for fraud detection applications. So the first one was actually towards market economy and power asymmetry. So why it was important? Because most of the time, when we talk about human biases and human prejudices, it is also about the market economy and how the power is distributed in our society, yeah? Who is deciding which technology will be built? Who is deciding how the technology will actually be built using which resources? People are deciding, people are on top are deciding who will be involved in this process, which data will be collected. And therefore, this is most of the time not the bias problem, it is a power problem, yeah? And by power, I mean all the stakeholders who are involved in the technology creation pipeline. Therefore, for us, it was important, firstly, to concentrate on this, and I will come back to this research paper for sure, but the second direction was towards cognitive biases, because it is also one of the most important and interesting aspects when it comes to design of data annotation platforms and how it is actually connected with power asymmetries in the domain. And the last but not least, it was an industrial perspective. My current fellowship in Zalando, I will also come back to that point as well, yeah? So, regarding the market economy and power asymmetries, what we did, we actually went to specific computer vision companies and the data annotation companies, and we try to understand what are actually their priorities in decision-making pipeline when they are building those data points and then selling this data into specific computer vision companies, yeah? So our two main questions here were which goals are prioritized by decision makers in the data annotation pipeline, and how do these priorities correlate with data-related bias issues? So there were a couple of companies in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, also in Bulgaria, Sofia, and we had also interviewed one company in Berlin, Germany, and also we have interviewed lots of management in data annotation companies, because probably not all of us are actually aware of the fact that those companies who are selling data, who are using human work to create data, they are most of the time not aware of the impact that they are doing in society, yeah? And most of the time these people are underrepresented communities, people coming from refugee camps, and they are coming from, even there was a company, I cannot for sure disclose the company, but they were using the workload of the people in jail to just simply sit and label data, yeah? And no guidelines, nothing. They really don't know what they are actually doing, and they have nothing to do with computer vision or any kind of technology. They don't even know what is AI, but these people are actually choosing they are building, actually, they are impacting the technologies that you, me, and others will gonna use or will be directly impacted by, yeah? So my presentation is gone. Okay. Let's just wait a bit, yeah. Oh, electricity is gone. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I don't think that there is actually a lot in my slides, so I can keep talking. Yeah, okay, great. So any questions, I can answer them later. So yeah, we have done qualitative interviews with them, also in-depth interviews with them. For me, as a computer scientist, for sure it was very interesting research, because yeah, it was not a pure deep technical work, but actually trying to understand what's going on around data creation pipeline. And we actually came up with three most interesting observations. The first one was that it's the most obvious one, like companies are actually favoring the profit over opacity or over the other priorities they have. For sure, every company wants to make money, and they really don't care who they are hiring, who is there actually to annotate data. The only thing that they do care about is money and how they will gonna sell this data. The second one is standardization. Most of the time, these companies has a very standardized way of labeling data, but without actually questioning it, yeah? The questioning why we are doing in this way, but not in another way, or how actually we can make it better so it will be less bias in the data. So that is obviously not a question for them. And the last but not least is the opacity. They really don't want the labelers to understand what they are doing, because as soon as people start to question something, they actually start to, not to agree with what you are telling, yeah? Or if they are well educated enough, they are not so much interesting for you because you are paying them hourly, I don't know, $5 or something, and you are happy, yeah? And 3 recommendations we actually tried to give to those companies which actually tried to somehow approach these recommendations. The first one was transparency. And by transparency, we don't always mean the transparency between top management, but also transparency between the top management and people who are in the lower positions in this pipeline. And also transparency with the people whom they are selling the data. That was also very important, which was not always the case. Education, it is actually important, and education was one of the things that most of the time they were trying to approach, but they didn't know how to approach it. And education of the labelers, education of the stakeholders, and quality assurance people. That was the second recommendation. And regulations. It is something that we cannot refer, or we cannot, suggest to those companies, because it's not something in our, in our hands, or we cannot talk about regulations if you are not in the regulatory perspective. But that is what we have actually gave to different other stakeholders, like policymakers, or Council of Europe, or other entities who are actually can work towards regulations specifically in data annotation pipeline, because it's very important. I will now go to the second project, if you are not too tired. And in the second project, we actually were concentrating on design aspects of data annotation pipeline. And what we mean by design is how different human interventions in data annotation is actually impacting the final model predictions. That was our question. And we tried to understand if there is actually a standard or handy tool for the designers, for the data annotation task designers to use, but the answer is obviously no, there was not. So we came up with the idea to build our own. And what we did, we came up with the 3 most common cognitive biases in the crowdsourcing platforms, and we came up with the understanding of how, to which level they are impacting the behavior of the annotator in the platform. And then we came up with the recommendations how the task designers are actually somehow manipulate this, or try to prevent these things, yeah? As a next step, we are trying now to build a plugin or maybe API actually for them to integrate to their platforms, and we are currently working on that, yeah? And the last project that I would like to talk about here is my current fellowship in Zalando. So Zalando is the biggest e-commerce platform in Germany, and it's going to be the second one, I think, in Europe. It is a very well-established e-commerce platform. It is very popular, but it's also popular not only with their brands and making a lot of money, but also their responsible and very conscious approach towards AI. And there is a privacy and fairness group inside of Zalando, and I really do think that most of the companies who are not thinking about privacy and fairness, they really do have to, not, the e-commerce platforms that has not a lot of risks with respect to AI, but that is another topic for sure. So there are 2 different interesting cases which I would like to share with you here. First one is related to payments operations, because it's one of the most critical infrastructures for e-commerce platforms, and fraud detection is one of the most interesting cases here, because machine learning strategies are used, but the case is that there are different use cases where people are somehow discriminated when they are using the platform, and when they they are using the invoice method when they are doing the payment. And this fraud detection is actually based on different criteria, like if the person were actually paying all the previous orders, let's say in past 8 weeks, or, there are different kinds of criteria here, yeah? But there was a very interesting so that if it has correlations with the very sensitive attributes like gender of the person who is doing the order, or with their past historical information, or with their gender or something. So our research currently is towards that direction, which is very interesting because, again, there is no very standardized methodology that we can apply here. So we are doing everything by ourselves, and we are trying to invent actually a correct methodology to measure label bias in this pipeline. And the second one is towards content moderation, where actually different kind of reviews in Zalando platform are being banned based on the specific bad words that might be there. And the problem here is again regarding inclusivity, because some people are using some jargons in specific language, and the content moderators, they really don't understand what that means. I'm sure there are different kind of things in Georgian language that I would never understand if you will even translate it to English. So things like this, it's very sensitive, and we are trying also to come up with a standardized way of label automation here to at least try to prevent things for damaging our customers in Zalando, because for sure, if I will enter the platform and write something offensive in Azerbaijani language, you will not understand, but someone else who really understands my language will understand, yeah? So yeah, it was a very interesting approaches that we have tackled within these 5 years. Unfortunately, you cannot see my last slide because it has a very interesting quote, but yeah, probably I can read it for you, yeah? A society that engages in a technique needs a strong inner force in order not to be seduced by the goals, not to become too greedy. So probably a bit difficult, but for me it is actually that we are very lucky that we are living in this century where all of those technologies are, revolutionizing every specific domain, but we really don't have to forget that we are, at the end of the day, we are humans, and every specific decision we make regarding the life of other people, it is somehow also impacting the life of ourselves, and we don't have to always concentrate on technology, but on the impact of it in human lives, yeah? Thank you very much. I'm done, even if with the technical difficulties.
Thank you very much, Gunay.